Okay, hello everybody. I'm Khirfan. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Waterloo. And today my supervisor, Dr. Khirfan, and I are presenting our research entitled Advancing Climate Justice Through Participatory Mapping, Green and Blue Infrastructure Planning for Adaptation to Climate-Induced Floods in Thorncliffe Park, Toronto, Canada. Sorry.
Yeah, try.
Okay.
Could you please speak the mic? We can't hear you.
Speaking the mic.
Okay.
Oh, yes, for sure. Okay. Is this okay?
Yeah, I think they are listening.
Our presentation has, sorry.
Can you please speak up? Because
Can you speak loud for the people inside, perhaps? Because
Yes, for sure. Yes, and I'm just wondering why it has some animation,
Okay.
and I cannot. Yes.
Okay.
And but can I myself control it?
yeah,
How?
working.
Oh, now it's working, I think.
No, it is not working. No,
Oh, it's perhaps the other side.
like this.
On the other.
Just turn it.
Okay.
I'll turn it the other way.
No, on the other side.
This,
Yes, that side. Okay, try again.
no.
By two.
Clicca sul PowerPoint. Yeah, it's working.
Where?
Click up.
What did you?
Okay.
Just forward and back. Yeah, those one. This. Okay.
Then again this.
Again,
Okay.
again. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay.
So our presentation has 7 parts. First of all, we speak about the background, then is problems and objectives, theoretical framing, case study, methods, findings, and concluding remarks. I leave the floor to my supervisor, Dr. Khirfan, to speak about the background.
So I'll just be presenting the background behind our work. My background is in architecture, and my graduate studies are in urban planning. So in my work, I try to combine urban planning and urban design together. My interest in climate justice and climate change stemmed from my focus on transformation. How do we transform cities? Building on what Massimo and what Francesca had mentioned, the challenge for us is how do we adapt cities for climate change while ensuring justice? The term transformation comes up in relation to climate adaptation a lot. We are transforming governance systems, transforming the ways we make decisions. But how do we transform how we build cities? And that's the big umbrella under which this specific research project comes under. Transformation in urban design, specifically in how we build cities, is associated with decisive actions, with what Haussmann has done in Paris, coming in, doing sweeping, rapid executions of urban design interventions. But these ideas clash with the advancement of justice. I've just published a paper with one of my colleagues at Berkeley, Zachary Lam, arguing that this approach to transformation that is massive in scale, rapid in execution, goes against justice because it entails displacing people, not thinking about their rights and equity. We need to consider less about governance when we talk about transformation, when we speak, not less about governance, let me retake that. Actually, a lot of the literature on transformation talks about governance and pays less attention to urban form. That's the majority of the literature. And as I said, transformation in urban design is often associated with Haussmann, large scale and rapid in execution. And it presents a singular as opposed to a democratic vision towards transforming urban form. So looking at urban design specifically, my work looks at socially embedded urban morphology, how we take into account the life within the urban form, but at the same time, building on what Massimo was talking about, how do we focus on the socio-ecological relationships in cities? How do we bring nature into the city, but also connect that to the social and economic processes that take place in the city, while also ensuring a deep form of inclusion, whereby we do not infringe on issues of equity and justice. So what we call for in our work what we call for in our work is transformation in urban design itself, whereby how do we transform urban design? Not only built form incorporates socio-ecological landscapes that ensue from the interactions of humans and built form. We also look at deeply inclusive design, participatory design processes like charrettes and other deliberative methods, and urban morphology that reflects the life within the city. But then we need to incorporate at a larger scale, the scale of the city, ecosystems and nature-based solutions, community control and ownership over adaptation, interventions, and low carbon urbanism that allows us to mitigate the impact of climate change. And also take into account the climate justice pillars in terms of the distribution of services, distributive justice, recognitional justice, and procedural justice connecting back to governance. All of this actually is in a newly published paper that is open access in the Journal of Planning Literature. Niloufer's work focuses on these connections, and I will give the floor to her.
Thank you. And building on Luna's work, I am specifically focusing on the unequal outcomes of urban form adaptation responses, such as through green and blue infrastructure in cities. Green and blue infrastructure relates to the interconnected network of green and blue spaces that can provide ecosystem services in cities and are increasingly applied for adaptation to flooding events because they increase the infiltration capacity of the soil, and they are very beneficial and useful, but they are usually based on the economic valuation of ecosystem services and monetary values and cost-benefit rationales, because decision makers aim to protect urban economies and valuable infrastructure against hazards, and that is why they use cost-benefit rationales. And because of this, such measures might lead to large-scale projects in affluent neighborhoods, while simultaneously excluding disadvantaged neighborhoods and low-value lands from their benefits, even if they are allocated in the low-value lands and disadvantaged neighborhoods. The focus is on the economic benefits, so that's increase the land values, and that is why they lead to climate gentrification and have unequal outcomes for the disadvantaged groups, because they might not be able to afford living on their neighborhood anymore and have to relocate to other places. So these create climate justice challenge in cities. So the problem is that, but the question is where and how we can integrate green and blue infrastructure in equitably in low-income neighborhoods. What should we do? And based on this objective, our theoretical framework, as Dr. Khirfan said, is built on distributive, procedural, and recognitional justice. We are specifically finding interconnections between these three pillars with ecosystem services and green and blue infrastructure theoretical debates. In terms of distributive justice, which relates to the equitable spatial distribution of resources and equitable outcomes, the existing studies mentions that small-scale dispersed green and blue infrastructure are more distributively just than large-scale concentrated projects, because large-scale concentrated projects can lead to climate gentrification, and they also covers a very small geographical area. But small-scale dispersed projects can provide even disadvantaged groups with benefits without relocating them, without climate gentrification, and they are more just. In terms of procedural justice, which relates to the fairness of decision-making processes, instead of economic valuation of ecosystem services, we are focusing on socio-cultural ecosystem service valuation. This valuation method relates to the non-monetary and non-economic values people have regarding the green and blue infrastructure. These include moral, educational, place-based, aesthetic, and social cohesion values that people have regarding the green and blue infrastructure. And regarding the recognition of justice, which relates to the legitimization of difference, we believe that the recognition of different identities, the recognition of different identities requires the recognition of local experiential knowledge, which is context-specific and relates to the individual's everyday life experiences. Our case study locates at Thorncliffe Park, Toronto, Canada. This neighborhood is built based on the concept of tower in the park, concept of Le Corbusier in the 1960s. But middle income people do not like to live there, and now during time this neighborhood become an ethnic enclave for low income people. Now currently 79% of people in this neighborhood are low income, 64% are new immigrants, and 79% of visible minorities, which relates to non-white people. And Thorncliffe Park, according to our previous GIS analysis, is one of the at-risk neighborhoods to flooding events in Toronto. It is because of the intersections between hazards, vulnerabilities, and exposures. The precipitation rates has increased in Toronto, and this neighborhood is proximate to floodplains. And in terms of exposures, this neighborhood include high rates of impervious surfaces. This is because it has very few green spaces due to discriminatory development, urban development policies, and industrial and utility uses. And it also has old infrastructure and overcrowded buildings, which might lead to emergency conditions in the face of disasters like flooding, for example, power outage issues. And people also are low income, they cannot afford to buy insurance or move to other places in case of emergency conditions. In terms of methods, our methods include 3 stages. First of all, we conducted a participatory mapping activity in the neighborhood. It is an online activity during which 120 people marched on the neighborhood map areas that need green and blue infrastructure for 5 benefits of recreation, aesthetic, sense of place, social interactions, and education. And then we mapped runoffs based on the coefficients, which means that's the amount of runoff and the amount of precipitation received in the neighborhood. If you're interested in the method, I will be happy to explain more at the end of the presentation. And then using our GIS, we mapped these 2 maps and to find the areas that need green and blue infrastructure. And I just rapidly showed you the results. Here is the map which shows areas that need green and blue infrastructure for social cultural benefits. Areas with bolder color shows these spaces, and here is the runoff coefficient map. And again, areas with the bolder color, it means that they need green and blue infrastructure for managing runoffs. I leave the floor to my supervisor to, when we overlay these 2 maps, the final map shows areas that need green and blue infrastructure, both for social cultural benefits and for runoff management. And as you can observe, most of these areas relate to industrial zones with very few green spaces. So I leave the floor to my supervisor to discuss about the concluding remarks.
So our research contributes in terms of how we approach theoretically issues of transformation and the integration of blue-green infrastructure through their distribution in the urban landscape as nature-based solutions, and also methods of including the local communities in terms of procedural justice, deep inclusion, working with the local community, whether through surveying them or interviewing them and knowing their needs and preferences. And then, of course, recognizing the diversity of the neighborhood and the diversity of needs within the neighborhood in reflection of the social socially embedded typomorphology. So also we transformed in the methodology by through this idea of participatory mapping that includes the local ecological knowledge of local communities and their social cultural valuation of where and how to integrate blue-green infrastructure or nature-based solutions in the city. And as we said, in the interest of time, we have to stick to the time limit, but we're happy to discuss more of the methodology during the deliberation. Thank you all.